I've read the legislation, and I'm not voting for it. So there. All right, Mr. Foster, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you. You're probably the only person on the panel today who's actually been to my district, and it was one of those rare moments when, while we didn't agree on everything, Secretary Moniz sent you and a team down to see what was going on in the coal fields. I greatly appreciated that. We had a seminar, as you'll recall, at the University of University of Virginia at Wise, and then you all went over to a high school in one of my poorest counties, Dickinson County. My district, for those who don't know, abuts West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and we have a significant coal mining investment in part of the district. It's a large, very large district. And so I was very appreciative of your comments on page 4 of your written testimony that says we need to, first, we need to embrace an all of the above flexible strategy toward climate solutions. There is no silver bullet. You said this in your oral testimony too. No single technology, no one perfect policy, which is why I believe we have to continue to invest in research. I would suggest when you, and you appreciated you both pronouncing Appalachia, for those of us from Central Appalachia, correctly, and for recognizing there are some things we can do in Appalachia. One that wasn't on your list because we hadn't really thought about it when y'all were down to visit is closed loop storage inside of a coal mine using the water. Obviously, there's nothing living down there. We bring the water in from outside. There's not an environmental consequence, and we can use that as a giant battery sitting in the same areas. Mr. Harvey said we want to put some of these jobs in the areas where the jobs are going to be lost, and my district has suffered heavily. Further, I would also have to say that one of the things we talked about at that seminar was the fact that we're going to continue to use coal. And everybody today has been talking about the grid and electricity. A large amount of the coal out of my district makes steel. And I know you have a lot of interest in steel as well, having worked with the unions in that industry. And so we're going to continue to mine that high-quality coal. And we have to find ways to make sure that the American public understands that not every coal is equal to other coal, that a lot of the coal around the world is dirtier than our coal. And we have to come up with new research and ways to do that. Now, I'm excited and will tell you that one of the participants there, and you heard the testimony from Dr. Yoon at Virginia Tech, they've just taken some of their technology and they were looking at rare earth minerals and separating that from the carbon in Central Appalachia, but they also can make poor coal better. And so they've licensed that technology to steel plants in India, and I think this is how we solve some of these problems, so that they can take that poorer coal that they're mining in India and upgrade what they're doing, because they're going to make steel. Other nations, particularly in the developing world, are not going to impoverish their people because we've decided we don't want it to be warmer. No matter what the consequences may be, they're not going to have their people living in the dark or living in poverty. But if we can get technologies that we can then license, what these two steel mills that they've licensed their technology to are going to do is lower the carbon footprint, because even in the developing world, they want to have jobs, they don't want to be impoverished, but they also want clean water and clean air. So this is where I think we can find the win, and I appreciate you saying that. And I am concerned, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to give me some help, that the DOE's loan program that you worked with, and that you said in your testimony there was $39 billion of unused low-interest loan and loan guarantees authority that could move rapidly to help finance some of this research that I'm very positive about. Tell me, why aren't we using that? What can we do to speed that up?
Well, I submitted along with my testimony a research paper that had been done by the Energy Futures Initiative about a year ago on a whole range of suggestions on how the Loan Program Office could be applied, particularly to energy infrastructure investments, and a variety of other issues like that. I do think that with the budget constraints that Congress may have on it, this is authorized $39 billion worth of loan guarantees and low-interest loans that could be applied without further authorizations. So I think looking deeply at ways in which the Loan Program Office could be used to accelerate additional technologies, particularly energy infrastructure, look at the research paper we did, and we strongly encourage the committee to investigate that more.
I appreciate it. Mr. Guth, you heard my spiel on developing countries. What can we do to increase their use of technologies, because they're going to continue to use fossil fuels? We know that. In fact, World Bank said we're not going to lend any more money for building coal-fired power plants, so China is investing in them all over the world, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. in building new coal-fired power plants that we want. What can we do to encourage these countries to use the new technologies and to make it cleaner?
That's a great example right there. I mean, the technology that the Chinese are financing is subcritical, and so you have more emissions. If the U.S. would have
Subcritical means poor.
yes,
Yeah.
if you would have remained, if the United States would have remained as part of that financing mechanism, we would have been using ultracritical technology and therefore lower emissions. But ultimately, we need to develop and commercialize the technology. If we make it available, as we have so many technologies that we're using right now, the rest of the world will use it. But the rest of the world generally, especially the developing world, does not have the resources that we have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Caston, you are recognized for 5